Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into this week's edition of my top waiver wire targets and streamable defenses. I'm going to go ahead and get right into this video since most of you should already know what I'm going to go through, but just as I always do, in case we have any first-time listeners, in the waiver wire section, I'm going to give you my top quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and flex ad of the week. These players, they do have to have at least 50% roster availability, so there is a good chance that they are available out there in your leagues. My quarterback ad of the week, I'm going with a guy that is turning his career around, apparently, underneath Kevin O'Connell. Sam Darnold for the Vikings. He's available in 70% of the leagues right now. This past weekend, he only threw for 181 yards, but the best part is he threw for 4 touchdowns. He has now 8 touchdowns in 3 games. This week, they are going against that Packers defense, so it'll be a little bit of a tougher matchup for Sam Darnold. But with what he did against that Houston Texans defense, I can see him repeating that success. I can see this being a potential shootout matchup, even though that Vikings defense is playing well. And another reason why I like Darnold is I saw this stat. I think Ian Harditz was the one that posted it today. Since week 1 of last season, the Vikings have the second most passing touchdowns. What that means is their coach, KOC, it doesn't matter who's the quarterback in the lineup, he can get the best out of them. And the other thing I like about this too is Jordan Addison hasn't played the last 2 weeks. You would hope he can return this week because they didn't place him on IR. So if they didn't place him on IR when he originally got hurt, I think it was his ankle injury, that means they thought he would come back within 4 games. So he's doing this type of production without their second best wide receiver. So I can see this continuing being a successful year for Darnold. And I just hope it's not the kiss of death, put him on the list like it was for Derek Carr for me last week. But I think Darnold is definitely worth the shot with how he is playing thus far this season. My running back ad of the week, and this might be the top waiver wire ad of the week, and no matter which position, it's going to be Bucky Irving, the running back here in Tampa, the rookie running back out of Oregon. He's available in 64% of the leagues. This past weekend, he had 9 rushes for 70 yards, and he also had 3 receptions for 14 yards on 3 targets. In 2 out of the 3 games, he's gotten the ball in his hands at least 11 times. And then Todd Bowles came out on Monday, and he admitted that they need to start getting Bucky Irving more utilized within their offense. He looks like he just has more juice than Rachaad White. So if you are a Rachaad White manager, you should be definitely trying to get Bucky Irving onto your roster because it sounds like they're going to start at least splitting the more reps, and maybe here by the halfway point of the year, Bucky Irving is going to be taking majority of the touches in the backfield. So yeah, if you need running back help, or if you have Rachaad White, you definitely want to be trying to get Bucky Irving on your roster off the waivers. My wide receiver ad of the week, I am going to go with Juwan Jennings. I know he's a popular pick this week. He's available in 68% of the leagues. This past weekend, obviously, he had that blowout game against the Rams. 11 receptions for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns on 12 targets. He has the Patriots this week. Now, they do have Christian Gonzalez, but I would expect Christian Gonzalez is going to be on Brandon Ayuk in this matchup. So I could see Juwan Jennings continuing, and I wouldn't see him having the same type of game this weekend, but he should be able to be utilized in the offense, especially if I think Deebo Samuel is out at least 1 more week, and if George Kittle's out another week, then that just gives Jennings at least value. I will admit this though, I do believe Jennings has short-term value because I think once Deebo is back in the lineup and once George Kittle is back in the lineup, you're going to see him go back to his normal role. But for now, if you need wide receiver help with, Cooper Kupp, he's out this week. We're still waiting on Puka Nacua to come back, and there's a number of other wide receivers that are banged up. A.J. Brown, now Devontae Smith. So if you need a wide receiver just for this week and probably next week, I think Juwan Jennings would be a solid option, especially considering if Deebo and George Kittle are officially ruled out to not play this Sunday. My tight end out of the week, and man, the tight end position is rough, especially when you go look at the total fantasy points through the first 3 weeks. It's just basically a crapshoot at this point. I think you just want to get a guy that is seeing a lot of targets, and you hope he can turn those targets into touchdowns. And one guy that might be coming along is going to be Cole Kmet, the tight end for the Bears. Available in 59% of the leagues right now. He had 10 receptions for 97 yards and a touchdown on 11 targets. So anytime I see double-digit targets for a tight end, I definitely love that. Now, he got 5 targets the last game, so he's gotten at least 5 targets the last 2 weeks. That's 16 total targets if you want to split it up over the 2 weeks, an 8 target average, which whenever I see tight ends get 7 to 9 targets consistently, that's when I really want them on my roster. And you just got to think too that the Bears are going to want to utilize him. I mean, they gave him a contract extension where he's averaging $12.5 million a year. So if they're going to be paying a tight end that much money, they got to start utilizing him in the offense and making him a safety valve for Caleb Williams. And he does have a solid matchup against the Rams, who have struggled against tight ends in the first 2 weeks of the season. Obviously, they didn't face George Kittle because he ended up getting ruled out. So their numbers are kind of skewed because of that. But I definitely still like Cole Kmet's matchup against the Rams. My flex ad of the week, I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers, the wide receiver, the second wide receiver in Las Vegas. He's available in 64% of the leagues right now. This past weekend, he had 7 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. He's gotten at least 5+ targets over the last 2 games. He's going against the Browns defense, which is a decent matchup for him. But the main reason why I would like to add him at this point, I don't think I want to pick him off the waivers and start him unless I'm dealing with injuries to the wide receiver position. But I think he's worth a shot at this point because his name has been brought up over the last 2 weeks in terms of like a potential trade chatter where he could get traded somewhere else. So if you can grab him right now and then he gets traded to a favorable situation, all of a sudden he can become even more fantasy relevant if he goes to a better quarterback situation. And another thing too is, I've said this back in the summer, I think Davante Adams is going to get traded before the trade deadline. So the opposite thing is, if Davante Adams gets traded to a new team, all of a sudden Jacoby Myers is the number 1 wide receiver in Las Vegas, and he'll be dominating the target. Well, he won't dominate. Brock Bowers would probably get most of the targets, but it would be between him and Brock Bowers who would see the most targets throughout the rest of the season. So I just see there's 2 different pathways for Myers I think the trade deadline is at the beginning of November. So I think there's just a pathway over this next month where Myers could end up being very fantasy relevant, kind of like a wide receiver 3-ish. I want to call him a wide receiver 2 until we can trust whoever his quarterback would be, whether he stays in Las Vegas or gets traded to a favorable situation. So yeah, those are my waiver wire ads of the week. Moving into my streamable defenses, just like the waiver wire targets, these defenses have to have at least 50% roster availability. So there is a good chance that they're available in your leagues and you can pick them up to stream them this week. And as I always say too, it has kind of been hit and miss with my defenses so far. This whole NFL season has been unpredictable. So guys, if you have a great defense or you have a solid defense, I definitely suggest playing them. But if you're like me, you're willing to take the risk and get a ceiling performance out of your defense, streaming a defense, these are some 5 options for you to consider. I like the Dolphins this week against the Titans. Dolphins are available in 53% of the leagues right now. I like this because this is a home matchup for Miami on Monday night. When you look at this matchup against the Titans have given up the 2nd most sacks. They have the most giveaways, because we've all seen the Will Levis, I wouldn't call them highlights, but the lowlights of what Will Levis has done as far as turning the ball over. And then what also gives the Dolphins them giving up sacks and giving the ball away gives the Dolphins a high ceiling as a streaming option. And then what also kind of gives them a high floor too is the Titans are only averaging 16 points a game so far this season. So that's what I like too, is they give you a potential high ceiling with a high floor, assuming they're not going to let the Titans have the blow up game. And then what you like about the Dolphins too, if you pick them up this week, is they're playing the Patriots in week 5. So you have the potential of streaming the Dolphins this week and then next week, and then you can move on to a new defense. My number 2, I'm sticking right in that same matchup. The Titans against the Dolphins. The Titans are available in 96% of leagues. We saw what Seattle took advantage of the Skylar Thompson matchup. That was a good streaming option. They were my number 4 on my list last week. So if you did the Seahawks, kudos to you for taking a chance on them. But this week, we'll have to see who the quarterback is. Skylar Thompson's day-to-day. It could be Tyler Huntley. Now, Tyler Huntley joined the Dolphins 2 weeks ago. So how familiar is he with the scheme? What will they be running? But the reason why I do like them, though, the Dolphins have given up the fifth most sacks allowed, so there's that sack potential because the Titans do have a very good defensive front. The Dolphins are also tied for the fifth most giveaways, especially when you have a backup quarterback that doesn't have the chemistry with their great wide receivers. There, you can see those potential turnovers. And it's mainly because Tua got hurt, right? But what's kind of surprising with all those weapons in Miami, they're only averaging 11 points a game through the first 3 weeks. That's the fewest in the NFL. So that also gives them it kind of gives them a higher floor. But I do admit, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and David Achane and all the weapons there, if everything clicks right, this is a risky business streaming against the Dolphins. But anytime you got a backup quarterback situation, I would be willing to take a chance on it. My number 3 streaming defense, I'm just gonna go with the Rams against the Bears. The Rams are available in 99% of the leagues right now. This is a high risk, high reward streaming matchup, in my opinion, mainly because the Bears offensive line is terrible. They can't run the ball, so they have to throw the ball a lot in Chicago. And then when you look at what the Bears have, where they stand in the stats column so far, they've given up the third most sacks. So you like the chance that Kobe Turner and Jared Verse can get after Caleb Williams and get you sacks and get you points with your defense this week. And then the Bears are tied for the second most giveaways. So they're giving the ball away, they're giving up sacks. I do admit, though, the Rams defense isn't the greatest one in the NFL, so this is more of a high risk, high reward streaming option, but I do like them if you were to miss out like on the Dolphins or the Titans. This defense definitely bit me in the butt last week in a couple leagues, the Raiders, but I still got to list them because they kind of got a favorable matchup. Raiders are still available in 58% of the leagues right now. The reason why I like this is a home matchup for the Raiders. I expect the Raiders to kind of play with a chip on their shoulder, especially having that big of a letdown against the Panthers. And then another thing, too, the Browns have given up the most sacks in the NFL. I think both their tackles are going to be out this week. They placed Joel Bitonio. They're probably you could argue their best offensive lineman was placed on IR. So the Browns are missing like 3/5 of their offensive line, and they're already giving up the most sacks in the NFL. So if I'm going to stream the Raiders, I'm betting on Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins to get consistent pressure on Deshaun Watson, rack up those sacks, which can turn into points, and hopefully those can turn into turnovers for you. And what's good about the Raiders too is they do have the Broncos next week. I know the Broncos were kind of upset the Bucks this week. We'll have to see if that can continue for them. But if the Broncos go back this week to looking like how they did in the first 2 weeks, you could possibly stream the Raiders this week and next week. My number 5 one, I still think the Panthers are worth a stream against, even though they had that bounce back game with Andy Dalton. And this is the Andy Dalton revenge game, but still, at the end of the day, the Bengals against the Panthers. The Bengals are available in 72% of the leagues right now. The Panthers are tied for the fourth most giveaways. I don't know, guys. I'm not completely thinking the Panthers are just this unbeatable team because they had a quarterback change. That's just me. I still think they have a poor offensive line. I think the Bengals, after this poor start to the season, they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder, especially on the defensive side of the ball for what they let Jaden Daniels do to them last night. So if you were to miss out on those top 4 defenses and there's nothing else available for you, this is more of a 12-14 team league play. I would definitely consider the Bengals in a deeper league. So yeah, those are my top streaming defenses for week 4. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe and follow me on all my social media platforms. I do want to give a shout out to my subscribers on YouTube. I have finally cracked over 100 subscribers on YouTube. So the next push is let's try to get to 200 as soon as possible. Also want to give a shout out to all the people that do follow me on TikTok. I'm getting closer to 400 followers on TikTok. So if you haven't followed me on there, please go over on TikTok and give me a follow. And then I'm also on X and I'm also on Instagram. I just kind of share the links to this content on Instagram, but you're always more than welcome to follow me and see what I post on there. Other than that, you guys will get me tomorrow night with my starts and sits for week 4. So I'll see you then. I hope you guys enjoy your evening, your night, your morning, whenever you're watching this, your day, weekend. Peace out.